my name is Iris Appenroth and I am, as of today, 1 year post-op from a lumbar artificial disc replacement surgery at L5S1. Woohoo! And in my case, I have the LPESP in my spine. So I decided to make this video today to create like a summary, like a snapshot of what has happened to me, because I realized I am not the only one. My story is not that unique. There are thousands and thousands of people like me out there who suffer from the same condition, and I hope that this may provide some sort of guidance or at least some insights and show you that you're not alone and that there are solutions out there. So I always been a very active person, never been overweight, never had any major medical issues. But in 2007, I was in my mid-30s, I got into a car accident. And even though I wasn't seriously injured back then, I did herniate my L5S1, which I didn't know. So I started after that accident to have sudden onset, like vicious back pain episodes. I call them episodes. It would just go and you would be stuck in this position. It was excruciating pain. I couldn't put my arms in front of me. Anything off my center of gravity, I just couldn't tolerate. So much pain for like a week or two, and then it would go away again and I would be pain-free until the next episode. And that was kind of like a pattern that started happening after the accident. Now in 2009, I found this really great chiropractor and he put me on that PT regimen. I mean, I got really strong back, strong core, and I was in really good shape. So I could keep this episode very much at bay. And that is when I met Ralph. And Ralph and I, we've been always the active couple. So we've been free diving, running through the woods, mountain biking, single track, mud racing, adventure races. We did it all. And I was actually good until it was May of 2012. And I remember that very, very vividly because to this very day, I don't know what happened. I do not know. I went to bed, I woke up, and I wasn't fine. I had that low grade, like 2 out of 10 dull pain in my lower back. It wasn't enough to really forcing me to alter my life yet, but it was there and it was chronic. It never went away. It was always there. So something has changed. And you kind of learn to live with it. And I went to nursing school and I was still active. But you become more mindful of what you do because you kind of become afraid of triggering episodes. So fast forward, late 2016 is when another shift occurred. And that is when the pain went from the dull, kind of, I can deal with it, it's not too bad, to, oh my God, this is really hurting me. And it went up from a 2 to a 4 out of 10 and it would stay there. And from that point on, I could feel going down that road getting worse. Every month I would feel a little worse and the pain would get a little bit more intense. And I knew I was sitting for a bad outcome. So I started to see a lot of specialists and got my MRIs, CTs, X-rays, I had them all. Oh, your MRI doesn't look so bad. Oh, the chronic pain has created new nerve pathways and now it's phantom pain. No, it's not. It's pain. It's real pain. It's in my back and I feel it. It's there and it's real. So don't give me that it's all in your head. Pain management is a nightmare. And you get called a drug seeker even though you're the one telling them, I can't really take anything strong when I go to work. I work as a nurse. I'm a nurse in an ER. I can't go there on narcotics. I'm sorry. Fix me. So it's been very frustrating. And basically, I had 20 injections up and down my spine, facet joints, SI joint, epidurals. I had them all. Nothing worked. I had traction, acupuncture, 3 rounds of PT. Nothing worked, and quite the opposite. As time went on, like PT, it felt like broken glass in my back. It made it worse. And at one point, one of the specialists was like, let's burn off the nerve in your lower back and see what happens. And let's not, because you have no idea why you're burning off my nerve, because you're just hoping that something comes of it, but you have no idea. That is very scary when you realize that there's nobody out there to help you. So I was getting so desperate at the end that I was about to pay a fortune to an osteopath to have PRP injected into my SI joint because she convinced me that this is where everything started. Needless to say, I'm very happy that I found Dr. Gales just 2 weeks prior to that. And Dr. Gales is here in Lake Nona, and he's been wonderful. He was the first one who actually sat down with me, listened to me, and he said, "You don't have a diagnosis." And I'm like, no, I don't. I just know there's something seriously wrong with me, and I'm about to lose my life. So he did a discogram. It's not as much fun as it sounds like. There was no dancing, there was no disco ball, there was no music. They flogged me on my back, they stuck a needle into my back, they injected dye into my disc, and let me just say, if the pain gets reproduced, it's positive. Well, I was very positive. So as much as that sucked, it also gave me the diagnosis. And at that point, when you looked at that MRI back then, you clearly could see my disc committed suicide. It was black, it shriveled up, it collapsed, it squirted out the front, and that was it. I had like bone on bone. I had no disc space left. It was pitiful. So at that point, surgery was my only option, and hands down, from the moment I got the diagnosis, I cried from that time all the way until I got home. I was so depressed. I was scared. That was the nightmare that came to pass. Spinal surgery at my age as a nurse. I mean, this was almost giving me a death sentence. And what am I going to do? So I started seeing, yet again, specialists, neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons, to see what my options are. And back then, I already kind of looked into alternatives to fusion, because fusion seems to be the gold standard, still performed today on people like me. And but I really didn't want a fusion. I just knew a fusion is not going to be the right intervention for me. It's not going to fix me. ADR in this country, it's really backwards. Some surgeons told me, yeah, they did it like 20 years ago, didn't really work out, so it was a good idea, but it didn't come to pass. Others never heard of it, or one was actually telling me that this is a money-making scheme of surgeons, unethical surgeons, who put that in to make money off their patients, and they're going to end up with a fusion anyways. Baloney. But I did my consultations, and then I decided to do more research. I found a few support groups talking about ADR. 2 or 3 of them are on Facebook, and so I decided I'm going to get an ADR surgery of my spine. So at that point, I was trying to do this in the States with my insurance I have. So I tried to get pre-authorized with a surgeon down in Miami. That never happened. Blue Cross Blue Shield denied the pre-approval, denied the peer-to-peer, and denied me actually appeal rights, which was really interesting in Florida. There's a whole section in my website, Insurance Nightmare. If you have some time for kicks and giggles, you can read that. It's like a soap opera that actually happens to people. It's unbelievable. So I shifted gears. I tried again to get pre-authorized with the Texas Pack Institute, they also do a lot of ADR surgery. Same thing happened. I was denied pre-approval, peer-to-peer, and that really pitiful appeal they sent in. Everything was denied. And at that point, I decided to go to Europe and have my surgery overseas. Now that is a very scary decision. That entails you go to your bank. At least in my case, I had to go to my bank, get a medical loan. I have to wire that money to a different country, to a hospital I've never heard of, to a surgeon I've never met, and just hope everything is going to work out in the end. But the support groups, the great thing is others have been there before, and in this case Lane, he was the first international patient of Dr. Desai, the doctor I picked, He's been there the year before, so he was my like I asked him all these questions, and he was really great helping me through this. And when I was finally sitting in the airplane to take off, at that point I was already out of work because I couldn't work anymore, so I was on leave. Um, and I just was desperate to get my life back. I mean, now or never. So we had that really long flight, economy, to Germany, which I think I scared the flight attendant a couple of times when I got up going to the bathroom. And I checked into the hospital the day before my surgery, and that is when I met Dr. Desai for the first time. And I admit, once he came in and we started talking, all my worries kind of faded away. I kind of knew I'm going to be okay. And so I was. I had my surgery the next morning, and I had to wait in the pre-op area for like 15 minutes before they could wheel me in. So Dr. Desai, she stayed with me, he talked to me, and then they put me under. Next thing I know, I woke up in the PACU, and I was staring at the ceiling, and I was thinking to myself, wow, I actually don't feel so bad. I'm not nauseous. Yeah, I have back pain, but it's different and expected. And then Dr. Desai was right there with a big smile telling me everything went fine, which is exactly what you need to hear at that moment. So I was getting pain medication. I was laying there. They let my fiance in for, a very brief period just to check on me. And as he comes in, he looks down at me and he's like, oh. And I'm like, oh, that's strange. Next, my mom comes in, looks at me, and bursts into tears. So at that point, I thought, I guess I don't look as good as I feel. And later on, my fiance actually told me I was white as a sheet with veins popping out. One eye went this way, one eye went that way. So I have no recollection of that. But my perspective wasn't that bad. So the next morning, I slept for most of that day. The next morning was where I was stood up for the first time. So I log rolled out of bed and I stood up, and that pain that has been with me for all this time, non-stop 24/7, it was gone. It was gone. Like not just, it was gone. And yeah, there's a lot of like burning in your muscles and your hamstrings. And I mean, you just had spinal surgery and they stretched my spine a centimeter. So I kind of restored my disc height and I'm as tall as I used to be. So I don't lie on my driver's license anymore. But that pain, that crippling pain, that pain that sucked the life out of me was gone. And from that point on, I was just unstoppable. I was able to walk. I walked a lot. So by day 2, I ditched the walker and I would just walk and I would sightsee. And once I got discharged, we traveled by train, on the bus. I've seen all of Cologne. We visited family up north, and I tolerated that just fine. And I had the back brace on, of course. You have that brace for the first 6 weeks, so you don't do something stupid. But you kind of have to alternate between the walking, the sitting, and the standing. But I was actually fine and very hopeful. And once I came back to the States and started my recovery, I just continued doing that. I did some stretching, but mainly I was doing walking on a treadmill inside a gym with air conditioning because it was May in Florida. So I was getting cooked in my little back brace there. So I kind of decided to do that. But I kept on walking, and I walked a lot. It was wonderful. So once the back brace came off, I was unstoppable. So we started, piece by piece to pick up activity again, and we would start bicycling, even out in the woods, first on pavement, then back on trails. I even did interval sprints, some PT. I started PT, I think at week 7 or 8. And I felt wonderful. I became strong, and I kind of felt like I got my life back. Now I need to point out though, for the first 3 months after the surgery, I was on FMLA, so I was not working. And I did this on purpose because I wanted to give the bone at least those 3 months to heal, because again, my department has no light duty. If you come to work, you work wherever they put you. And So after the 3 months and work resumed, I was working full-time, 12-hour shifts, plus the extra 8 every 2 weeks because it's federal government. I had to also pick up again my graduate school studies, which I had to put on hold. So now I have graduate school going on, full-time work, and a lot of other obligations on the side. And I just didn't have the time. I really, really wanted to commit 3 times a week. I go to the gym, I'm going to do all these things, I'm going to go bicycling. Yeah, that really didn't come to pass as I envisioned that, but my outcome was still great. And I even got deployed, believe it or not. At 7 months, I believe it was post-op, I got deployed with the DEMS disaster relief group that responds to natural disasters or anything of that nature. So I was sent to North Carolina after Hurricane Florence hit for 2 weeks. So I was able to do that, and I was amazed. If I tell people, hey, I just had back surgery 7 months ago, they look at me like, say, what? We would have never guessed. If I don't tell people, they would never know. So it's now a year later, as of today, and I can report to you, I feel wonderful. I have no restrictions. I hopefully right now I'm trying to transition to a different role with my nurse educator degree. I'm going into healthcare simulation, which hopefully gives me my evenings back and a little bit more routine in my schedule. One thing that this whole experience has taught me, that life is short and I want to enjoy my life to the fullest now. So I'm trying to de-stress my life, and hopefully this will be the last surgery I will ever have. And with that being said, if somebody would ask me if I would do this again, in a heartbeat. ADR surgery has been my answer, and it has been the best thing that could have possibly happened to me. So you take care, and I hope you find a solution that's right for you too. Bye.